Lost Art with Andrew Cox, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant. thelostart.podbean.com. Get some merchandise and help support the podcast in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Now on all major podcast platforms. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be a guest, tell your veteran story, discuss your veteran business or organization. Email The Lost Art with Andrew Cox at gmail.com. Andrew Cox, a Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. See the project story at tillvalhallaproject.com. Thanks for tuning in. Please enjoy the podcast that's giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox.
Should be working. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we'll be having a My Veteran Story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Then be sure to go to the Lost Art website. That's the lostart.podbean.com. Go check it out. See what we're all about. There is a merchandise tab. You can click on there. Go get some cool merchandise. Help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. I also want to give a shout out to the Till Valhalla Project. They're out there doing amazing things. And I'm just humbled that they allowed me to be an ambassador for that organization. But I encourage you to go check out their website as well. That's tillvalhallaproject.com.
Yeah, when we came back from that deployment, the staff NCOs in the company, we all became extremely close. We're still extremely close. And they all went on recruiting duty. They all just scattered and went on recruiting duty. And I was stuck there thinking like, okay, well, I should probably take a break. Two back-to-back deployments it's a little bit. And, I was, like I said, I was drinking a lot and I was like, what should I do? What should I do? And I think my sergeant major was like, well, you wouldn't make it as a drill instructor. And for me, if you tell me that, it's like, okay, now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now that you're saying that I won't make it. And so, that's where I went to the recruit depot and met you in Fox Company, right?
That's right.
Yeah, together. Yeah, because I went to do my chief cycle at Echo, but we met when I was still a Fox Company hat. So
yeah, that's right.
So went to the depot for I got out like 3 months early, which was kind of cool. Because I was going back to my unit and we were deploying again. So I did 4.5 cycles with Fox Company. I got to be I think it was a 5th hat and a 4th hat and a 3rd hat and a J and a senior. I got to do them all once, which is cool. I really wish I could have done them a little bit more, but I was just kept getting kind of pushed in there. And then we were on break and, I got the phone call that they were like, hey, you're going to Echo Company. And I was kind of pissed because I wanted to stay with Fox,
Yeah.
Hey, I still have a Fatal Fox ammo can from the CFT. I stole it a long time ago. It's on my fireplace right now, but I've used it to prop the door open like we would in the squad base. It's like I've always kept it. They sent me to Echo, and I remember I went specifically to go see Mark because I was pissed, man. I was like, I felt cheated, and I was like, hey, why? Why do I have to go there? And he gave me a compliment though. He said because you're a meat eater. And they need a meat eater over there, and, so don't prove me wrong, go over there and take care of those guys. And so I was like, okay, I really wanted to stay with Fox, but it is what it is. So I went over to Echo and I did 2.5 cycles with Echo Company. And, I barely survived that because like I said, the drinking was really bad. You probably didn't even know, did you? When we were together.
No, I didn't know. Huh?
Yeah, I was really good about keeping it under wraps. But after my very last cycle, I decided, hey, you got to stop this. And so I got sober. I went to AA. I was actually going through withdrawals when I was in Advanced Academy. I was at Advanced Staff and
No kidding.
Academy, having DTs and stuff in class. And I remember like looking at people's bootlaces and seeing their bootlaces weren't laced properly. And I remember trying to be like, these aren't recruits, dude. These are other gunnies that are in the fleet, and you're about to go off on them about their bootlaces. Maybe let's kind of calm down. And so, I did advanced course, and then I went back to the depot as the the house of knowledge. I was like the principal of the house of knowledge. I
Oh
didn't
yeah. Okay.
instruct any classes, but I was like the chief instructor there. So I would, sit in on classes and rewrite some of the curriculum and work with the three about it. Uh,
Right.
but I had a really skate job. I had a really, really skate job there. And I don't
Yeah.
complain about that at all. But yeah, I was able to get my reenlistment going, and I left the depot in December of 2012.
Mhm.
I went to foreign weapons instructor course at Quantico, and then went back to 3rd LAR and deployed with them like a couple months later. So
Oh wow.
really from 2006 until 2000 and Jesus, when I say it out loud, to 2014, if I wasn't on the depot, and that the depot is not a break.
Oh
You're
no,
not
not at all.
there.
Yeah.
I was doing back-to-back deployments. So yeah, I deployed with my battalion back to Afghanistan this time. We went to what was it called? Conishan Castle. And it was this
I don't know
old
that one.
700-year-old mud castle right on the Helmand River. It was pretty cool, but also pretty eerie, like living in this fort basically. And there were these concrete structures inside of it that were built by the Soviets when they invaded. And
No kidding.
being inside those buildings was haunting. I mean, it was just, you could just tell that there was a lot of bad energy in that place. But
Oh yeah, man. Holy
yeah,
cow.
we went and I did that deployment, and then I came home, and my battalion sergeant major wanted me to be the operations chief for like headquarters company, which is typically the job for the senior 0313 in the battalion. And I've never been an 0313. I've always, I was an 0311, a rifleman. I never went to school. I mean, running an LAV, I'm not going to say that it's easy, but I had a master gunnery sergeant that told me when I first got there, he said, look at this thing as a mobile support by fire platform with communications assets. And something just clicked in my head from that point. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I know how to utilize this in conjunction with my guys on the ground. So I was decent at it. It wasn't that hard for me, but bottom line, I'm not an 0313. Like I should not be holding this billet. And so I called bullshit. And, I was like, I don't want to say this isn't fair, but come on, man. Like, seriously, like there's other guys that are better suited for this. And he's like, yeah, but you can do it. It's like, that doesn't matter. Like, I mean, this is my career. You're going to stick there. Like, no way. So I found I don't remember how I found it, but I found a spot for a Georgian liaison team. They were looking for an E8, a staff, the senior enlisted advisor for an advisement team that would go to the Republic of Georgia, train a battalion, and then deploy with them to Afghanistan. So it was like a 2 deployment deal. And so I kind of, greased the skids, and I got myself in there. And I remember like I had a shouting match to the battalion sergeant major about it. But at the end of the day, he was like, he was a little upset, but I told him, I was like, look, man, you told me in Afghanistan that I could take whatever billet I wanted, which I wanted to go on another deployment. And now you want to hamstring me and keep me here with the battalion doing like, the most non-grunt job there is, like unacceptable. Like I want to do this. I feel like it would be better for that unit deploying if they had somebody that wants to be there versus somebody that's being told that they have to be there.
Right.
So he saw it that way too. And so they sent me away. And I went and met up with this ragtag team of guys. Do you remember Tom Ferguson?
Yeah.
He was one of my advisors there. He was one of my staff NCOs. Yeah. So that was fun.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got some stories, but I won't tell them. But I love that kid. I do. I really do. I genuinely love that kid. But there were some times where there were some things that he was doing that some people were like, what's he doing? And I was like, don't worry about it. He's fine. But to say that he wasn't consistently, on my mind, that would be a lie. I love the guy though. But yeah, we did that deployment. We went to Georgia and we trained him, and Georgia was amazing. Georgia was really, really cool.
So now in Georgia, that wasn't, I mean, yeah, you're deployed and you're training the Georgians, but it wasn't, I mean, not necessarily like a regular deployment at that point, right? In Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, we lived on the base, you know, and we had our weekends off. It was like it was like almost like a training deployment. You know, I mean, again, this
Yeah.
is the one deployment I have that was so far different than the other one. So it's really hard to explain. There's other people that's the only deployments they've ever done is, you know, they go to Okinawa and they you know, do
Yeah.
training, this, that, and the other. So it's kind of like an Okinawa deployment, I guess is what you
Okay.
could say. So I mean, I got to see almost all of Georgia. I did get I took
Wow.
advantage of my weekend passes, and you know, we got to see caves and monuments and castles, and I mean, it definitely, I was sober at this point too. So, I mean, my brain functioned a lot differently. And
Yeah.
I remember the Marines would always get stressed out because we would tell these Georgians, like, hey, you need to be here at 8 o'clock. And they'd show up, you know, half of them would show up at 9. And, you know, we called it GMT, Georgia maybe time. You know, you tell them to be there, maybe they'll be there. And, you know, I remember, I think Tom was one of them. He was like, you know, stressed out about it, you know, because like they don't do what we're telling them to do, this, that, and the other. And I said, well, let's think about it this way. You know, like if you took your counterpart back home, what would you show him? What's the oldest thing that you could show him? You know, and for me, like if I took my counterpart, Sergeant Major Abdil Atlandiani or something like that, I can't remember how to say his name. Ovto is what we called him. But if I took Ovto home to where I'm from, I would show him the lava chutes around Klamath Falls where like the last big, you know, Indian battle was fought.
Yeah.
And that's 180 years ago, 100, you know, at the time or whatever. Like, I mean, not really that long. But
Right.
when you're in Georgia, you're at a coffee shop that's built into the side of a 900-year-old castle.
Yeah.
And they lived through world wars, plagues, Y2K, you know, revolutions, you know, the Mongols, everything. They've lived through all of it. And so when you tell something like that, like you need to be here or the world's going to end, they're like, no, it ain't. You know? Like, I mean, culturally, they're like, no, you know, and as Americans, culturally, we're like teenagers. We barely know what we're doing, you know, compared to a culture like that. So it was eye opening. That's for sure. But
wow,
yeah, we trained that battalion up, and then we deployed with them to Afghanistan for about 5 months, and we had battle space that they owned, and you know, we were their advisors, of course, and luckily we had a fantastic group of guys from Anglico that were attached to us, and those guys saved our lives daily. You know, I mean, they just the Georgians were great, but they weren't Marines for one, and you know, they were there, you know, trying to really get their NATO membership. You know, that's kind of the whole purpose of those deployments, is very political. But they weren't there to fight. And the Marines are there to fight, but they can't fight when they've got these Georgians, you know. So it was great to have Anglico, you know, bringing in, you know, everything from HIMARS to you know, JDAMs, you know, for us and stuff. So it was really nice to have those guys watching our back. So I'm forever grateful for my Anglico guys. I love Anglico.
That's wild.
Yeah, I came back from that deployment, and I was able to switch my MOS back to 0369. I kind of did a backdoor deal. The monitor at the time was a friend of mine, and I was like, look, man, like, they've had me strung out as an 0313 for the last, I think, 6 years at the time. And I was like, I'm very clearly not, you know, like I should be able to go fill an 0369 billet. And so he made it work. And I remember my master guns, when I got back to 3rd LAR, he was pissed because he wanted me to go and stay with that battalion. And he was like, you know, that's selfish what you're doing. And I was like, I gave you 5 deployments, you know, like if you count it up, I'd given this battalion 5 deployments. Tell me that I'm selfish again. You know, tell me that I'm selfish. And he was like, you know what? You're right. And so I went over to 5th Marine Regiment. I got remarried at that time. And I was the 5th Marine Regiment headquarters company gunny, company first sergeant. And then before I retired, I was I ran their pool before I retired. You know,
oh wow, okay.
Once I turned into my paperwork, because I'm a McQuist, so when I turned in my paperwork, you know, they asked me, they're like, well, do you want to come back and be the company gunny for the last 6 months, or do you want to go to the pool? And I was just like, what stupid questions do you have? That's the dumbest question I've ever heard. Every boat company Marine wants to work at the pool, and I never got that opportunity. So yes, I will go to the pool. I'll see you there. I'll come in on weekly meetings. Don't come down there without announcing yourself, because we're going to be outside. So
that's funny.
But the Marine Corps did get me in the end. I love telling this story because the Marine Corps graced me with, 2 sergeant farmers, 4 corporal farmers, and like 3 lance corporal farmers, meaning that all of my guys at the pool were exactly like I was when I was that age. And
no.
Yeah, I love them to
you
death.
had your hands full.
Like, I had to be very careful with what I told them they could get away with, because they would push to the end. I mean, I have a guy, he's a gunnery sergeant now. And I remember like we were up on the tower and some kid was up there. He was afraid to jump off the tower. And I like just kind of like looked over at him. In fact, this kid was one of our recruits when we were in Fox Company.
Oh, no way.
Well, not the kid that had, the kid that worked for me was.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of like went like that to him, and he grabbed that kid to throw him off the tower. And I mean, this kid, the trainees like grabbing onto a pole, screaming for dear life. And I was, oh my gosh, man, I love those guys, but I definitely had to keep a tight leash on them, because they were ready to break stuff. But I mean, that's what you want. You'd rather have somebody that you have to hold back than somebody you have to push forward. So
that's true. Yeah.
I enjoyed my time there, and I'm still actually really close with all those kids I worked at the pool with too. So
very nice. Wow. Okay. And so you did that. And what year did you actually end up retiring?
2016.
2016. That was at 20 years for you?
No, I took a temporary early retirement authority.
Okay.
My second wife, now my ex-wife, like she had an issue going on with her ex where I don't want to get into details, but it was bad.
No, that's fine.
It was bad. And, I had to look at it and be like, okay, well, I mean, I could finish out my career, but I know if I'm not going to go down to Pendleton and not deploy. Like I wanted to deploy. I love deploying. And I didn't want to leave her up there in Oregon, and we had just had our daughter the year before that. So I had my own child with her, and then I had 2 stepdaughters. But I was like, you know what? I've done, at this point, it was 7 deployments. I was like, you know what, dude? I think you can hang your hat up and walk away from this if they'll allow it. And, so I wrote the letter, and they said, yeah, you're granted temporary early retirement. And, so I think I get 45% of my base pay versus 50.
Okay.
So it's not that big of a hit. It really wasn't. It was, but it was still hard. It was tough to walk away.
Now, how many years total was it?
18.
18. Yeah. That's still pretty close, man.
Yeah.
Pretty close to that 20 mark. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I was right there. So, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't hold some resentments towards it, but it is what it is. I mean, you can't hold on to it. So.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like you didn't put in your time, like you were saying.
Exactly. Anytime, I deal with that a lot when people are like, well, why didn't you turn in, do your whole 20? Like, I feel like just pulling up my DD-214 on my phone and being like, fuck off.
This is why.
This is why. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's got a continuation page on it, so I don't need to validate myself to you. So.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So after retirement, like, what has been happening with you?
So before I retired, I started, I'm sure you saw, I was selling those rustic wooden flags.
Yeah.
While my ex-wife and I were going through the legal issues with her, with her deal, I needed more money, like, I mean, I needed money to pay for attorneys and this, that, and the other. And so it sounds so wild, but like I had a dream, like Kevin Costner, if you build it, it'll come, and I had a dream about selling these flags, because we had made one for our own home. Nothing like what I sold, but similar. And we got compliments on it all the time. People were always saying, hey, this is really cool, you should sell these. And so I decided to put 2 of them together, and they sold like right away. And I mean, I just took it and ran with it. And so I was actually, I was building those flags at the pool house at 5th Marine Regiment,
no kidding.
in the evenings, while the guys were gone. I mean, there's probably still stain marks in the head, in the shower room, but I mean, I did what I had to do to pay the bills, but that turned into uh, a pretty successful business. I think I made over between 1,200 and 1,500 flags
Oh,
over the next
wow.
6 or 7 years. Yeah. And so
Holy
I
cow.
would build those out of my garage. And then to supplement it, I was going to school. So I've got I'm close to graduating with my bachelor's, but I went to community college and then went to Southern Oregon University. So I got
Mhm.
money from the GI Bill coming into. And then in the summer times, I would work as either a zip line guide or a whitewater rafting guide.
Ah,
Uh,
I see. Yeah.
and so, yeah, I did that for, like I said, about 6 years. And then once the kind of roof fell out of the marriage, um, I got into sales.
Hmm.
I was doing sales in Oregon for a little while. And then my buddy called me up uh, and he was like, "Hey, what do you know about linemen? The guys that work on the grid."
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, "Hey, I want you to come and work with me recruiting for this school. But first you have to go to the school." And so I went to the school, and then it turned into, well, you need to go out and work for a little while. So I went out and I worked in
Right.
the trade for about 9 months. And then back in March of this year, they called me, the school did, and said, "Hey, we want you to interview for this veteran advisor position for this line school."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I came down and you know did my interview, and I've been doing this ever since. So now I'm a veteran advisor for a line school in Texas. It's we bring veterans in and teach them how to become pre-apprentices, and then I find them a job with one of our companies and help them get indentured into the apprenticeship.
Right.
And I love it. People ask all the time, "Do you like your job?" I'm like, "No, I love my job," because
Yeah.
it's the exact opposite of the Marine Corps.
Hmm.
I'm not looking for people. There's plenty of people for me to bring here, but
Hmm.
I have to make sure that it's the right person, because we want to, what
Right.
we're giving them it's unbelievable.
Well,
There's
correct me if I'm wrong, that this is like, we're not talking like the small power lines though. You're talking like the super tall structures and things like that.
all of it. Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
distribution, transmission, I mean, and all of it. So, yeah, to become a lineman, you got to go through the apprenticeship, which is 7,000 hours of training. And, you're doing
Wow.
everything from overhead to underground, transmission, distribution. Distribution is like going from the substation to, the houses. But
Right. Okay.
transmission is, going from the power plant to the community or to the substation.
Ah, I see.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it can be anything from, 220 to, several thousand kilovolts. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
wild. It's pretty wild.
Holy
So
cow.
I didn't really get too far into the weeds with work. I wasn't we call it in the tools. I wasn't in the tools for very long. I didn't even start my apprenticeship before they called me up to come do this. But
Yeah.
um, I would tell you that the what do you call it? The camaraderie, the brotherhood. I mean,
Hmm.
it's very real. Like I really enjoyed my time out there. And so for me to be able to help
Very
other
nice.
guys that are looking for something to do, like, hey, if you consider line work and if you really want this, this is a great place to be. But if you don't really, really want it,
Hmm.
don't come here, because this is I mean, it's tough work. I mean, it's blue collar
Yeah.
work, and it's tough, and it'll eat you alive if you're not if you don't really, really want to do it,
Oh,
so
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Wow. So if there's veterans out there and they happen to watch this, what are the ways to for them to actually get in contact with the school and start to learn the trade?
Yeah, absolutely. Just I mean, for the most part, if you want to become a lineman, you should educate yourself on the apprenticeship first and foremost, because it's a lot of
Hmm.
traveling around. There's several different groups, area wide, we call them, throughout the country. And so if a kid that's from Texas and he wants to be in Texas, he would get indentured with Southwest Line Construction Apprenticeship Training, which is SWOLCAT, and that includes Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And so
Right.
that person needs to understand that if he wants to become a journeyman lineman, first he has to get into an apprenticeship. And during that apprenticeship, he can expect to probably travel around all of those states
Right.
while he's indentured. And then once you top out and you're a journeyman lineman, you go wherever you want, make really good
Okay.
money, this, that, and the other. But I would say first and foremost, learn a little bit about what it is that you think you want to do,
Hmm.
because You can never have too much information for one, and it's always best to know what you're getting into. And if they see that and they realize, hey, I think that this is something that I could do, then have them go to intoveep.com, or just look up Veep. It's a veteran electrical entry program. There's an inside program and an outside program. And it's in conjunction with the IBW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. So we partner with them. And it very the industry is very conducive to veteran mindset. It's very conducive to it. So if somebody's watching this and they want to get into the line trade, or they have questions, they can first and foremost go to their local union hall and sign the books, or ask some questions. Google and Reddit are always great. But if they already know what it is and they want to get into it and they want to take advantage of the Veep program and at least apply, go to intoveep.com and fill out an outside line worker application, and then they submit a resume and an application, and then I do a video interview with them, decide if they're going to be capable of completing the course. I mean, if I had my way, I would bring in 50 veterans and graduate 50 veterans, but it's not a guaranteed pass course, and the instructors here are great individuals. But I mean, if you're not hacking it, get out of here. We don't have time for that. We have to make sure that the next guy is trained up, so.
Well, not only that, there's a lot of safety concerns when you're dealing with electric. You don't want somebody that's subpar or even close to that. So
right. So, and I've got to step up on them because I went to the school as a student before I ever came and sat at this desk. I was here. I had my blue rope, and I was just like them. And so when I talk to them, I can give them real firsthand advice of, hey, look, you need to step it up, or whatever it might be. So it's been pretty cool.
Very nice. Well, hey man, it's been great hearing your story. If is there anything that as you look over your career, all the experiences that you've had, anything that you want to leave everybody with?
Well, I mean, and we've been friends on Facebook for a while, so that I'm probably really into mental health. Mental health. Yeah. I think that the way that we teach it and the way that we talk about it, it's just all wrong. If I could go back to before I retired and I was working at the pool, really funny story. I was told, hey, they're going to do a resilience class at in the base theater, wherever it was, and you guys have to go. And so I mean, I've always been with my mantra in the Marine Corps was always, look, if you want to party like a rock star, you have to perform like a rock star, because, I got away with a lot. I'm talking like my battalion master gunnery sergeant bailing me and my buddy Sean out of the brig hours before we went to Iraq. And this was after we were staff sergeants. I mean, we were,
oh, wow.
Yeah. My last platoon that I graduated as a chief, as a senior, I had a black eye and flex cuff marks from the night before. I mean, I was,
oh man,
but I performed, you know what I mean? And so when I got to the pool, I told him, like, look, I'm not trying to change things up. But there's a certain precedence that we have to uphold, And so on Fridays, when we got to put on our Charlies, this is how it's going to work. 3 of you are going to put on your Charlies, and you're going to go to the S2, the S4, the S1, random places throughout regiment, and ask dumb questions so that people will see you in uniform and leave us alone. And I told him, it's like, I will always be one of those 3 because I've got meetings that day anyways. And so this way, the company is never going to say like, oh, well, the pool is skating. You're damn right, the pool is skating, but you got to be smart about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was on this specific day, and I told them, look, 3 of you are going to go, and 2 of you are going to ask legitimate questions while you're there, so that the leadership will say, oh shit, the pool's here. Like, the pool's never comes to these things, but all right, cool. If they had the impression that I had it under control, they would never come down and bug us and see me paint flags in the middle of the night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's, how I got away with it. So I told these guys, I said, hey, look, they're going to go and teach you some really dumb stuff, probably talk about meditating and breathing and just dumb crap. just go, but be on your best behavior. Ask a couple questions so people see you, and this, that, and the other, and we'll go from there. And so I showed up, late because I'm a gunny, coffee in hand because I'm a gunny. And I'm sitting in the back, and just hearing this guy talk about mental health, I was like, no, just no. Like, just the way that he's approaching it, the way that he's talking to these guys, very soft and, feelings this, and just the way that it was, I was like, And I raised my hand and I started just tearing him apart in the middle of the class, and to where my Marines were like turning around in their chairs, like looking at me like, what the heck, And when it was all said and done, I pulled the guy out into the hallway and chewed his ass even more. And I was like, why are you here? Like, how did you get here? How did you get this audience? Because you are not the person to tell these guys this. Like, on one hand, yes, I 100% believe that you have to resolve traumas, whether it's childhood or combat trauma or whatever. You have to work with it. But the way that you're saying it, no, it's not working. Nobody's listening to you. I'm the only one that's saying it, but I promise you, everybody that's walking out this door is thinking the same thing. And the Marines were waiting for me back at the pool house when I got done. And it was just like maybe an hour later, and all of them were there. And I'm thinking it's Friday. Like, why aren't they gone? And I walked in and I was like, hey, what's going on, guys? Why are you still here? And they're like, sit down, Gunny. We need to talk to you. Like, what's up? And they told me, they're like, you did exactly what you told us not to do. And I was like, well, screw that guy. I didn't like the way he said it. And they were like, we get it, but come on, man. And so when I got, after I'd retired, after a couple of years, and unfortunately lost several friends to suicide. And I was able to hold on to my sobriety at least. So that was nice. But I went and got counseling. And my counselor, I remember I vented to him and I told him all this, this is what I'm dealing with. I've got combat trauma from 4 combat deployments. I've got marital problems from, a failing marriage. I've got childhood trauma from this, boom, 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 boom. And I said, I don't want to take any pills because I don't like the way that they make me feel. I like to feel connected to myself. Don't tell me that I need to just sit here and listen to my breath. What can I do? And this guy, he listened to me for a while. And I'll be honest, my ex-wife kind of pushed me in the direction as well to look into meditation. And there was a nonprofit that sent me to a Tony Robbins event for like 4 days.
Oh, wow.
And I we got to learn how to meditate and a little bit of breath work. And it's also a lot of the fluff, that is, self-help industry is an industry 100%.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I learned how to kind of control my brain and this, that, and the other. And I got really, really, really into meditation, breath work, journaling, mental health. It's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you maintain and do these specific things, you can keep yourself, resilient. You can build onto your resilience and this, that, and the other. And I feel like nowadays these kids, because that's what I deal with here. I deal with these guys that are just getting out.
Yeah.
This thing right here is destroying our brains. It really is. And I think that the military in general just needs to have a better concept of how they teach the mental health and whatnot. And I know that it's like, meditation, breath work stuff. It's really woo woo, it's hippie shit.
Yeah.
And I'm working on a book right now called The Veteran's Guide to Hippie Shit, which explains from a combat veteran's point of view, like, hey, look, I know that this sounds weird, but if you'll do this and you do it consistently, you'll find that you don't need to drink to wash away memories or whatever. You'll face it, and you'll just become a stronger person and a better, in my opinion, a better warrior too. There's a difference between soldiers and warriors are able to adapt and to different situations. And it's just that's a huge passion of mine. Like, what we can do about it at this point, I'm not really sure. I know that I'm moving I'm taking some big steps in a right direction as far as teaching this stuff, but I don't know. It's just, if I had to say, how did my dad put it? my dad was a Vietnam veteran, and after my second deployment to Iraq, I was a little shell shocked dealing with not to get too much into detail, but I mean, I was literally holding this kid's head in my hand on this deployment, and it was an incident that it was really hard for me to walk away from. And this was maybe 2 years before I met you. And I was sitting there with my dad, and he could tell that I was dealing with it. And I asked him, I said, am I going to get over this? Am I going to forget about, what I did, what I saw, what I smelled, what I heard, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. And my dad, God bless him, he said he never answered any answers directly. He would always tell a story, And so he said, well, I watched a documentary on World War I veterans, and they asked these guys, they were 90, 100 years old, hey, did you ever just forget about it? And they said, no, this is a part of you now. This 100% is a part of you. And until you learn how to live with that, it will constantly try to get in. So you have to let it in, and you have to make peace with it. And so I would say with these days, I mean, especially with all of the different brain chemistry crap that the phone's giving them, the dopamine and instant gratification and all this external validation, they need to have a good understanding of who they really are, not who they are on social media, not who they are on, on a dating app or TikTok or whatever, but who they really, really are inside. Like what this game that we're all playing, whether you go to combat or not, what this game is all about. I think that the more people can understand what that is, and we go into these next few wars that are probably coming up sooner than we'd like to think.
Very true.
I worry about if you take just random, Joe and John out of high school and put them in a Marine Corps uniform and send them to Syria or Ukraine or wherever. I really worry about their mental health when they come back, because they're more apt to be programmed. And so I think the solution to that is to teach our service members how to, be their true authentic self, if that makes any sense. And I know it's a lot of really weird woo-woo stuff, but if you make it a consistent exercise daily, you end up a guy like me that's got significant combat trauma, significant childhood trauma, and I can wear a smile all day, and I can go to sleep at night without having to put something on, without having to put some, take a pill or smoke something or drink something. I can go to bed at night and sleep peacefully. And I mean, it's a gift that I wish to God I could give to, my friends that chose other paths, of course. But so I'm very passionate about that. I'm still trying to figure out how I can make it into something. But, I would just say that, like, just know what you're getting into, I mean, it's my dad told me, he's like, you got what you wanted, you wanted this since you were 14, and now you got it, and now you're crying about it. And I was like, fuck, you're right.
Yeah. He does have a point. Yeah.
You got a point, and then, moving forward, as the more senior I got on deployments, I'd do another combat deployment and another combat deployment. And I would hear from the officers or the younger Marines that it was their first time doing anything like that. And, we come home and they're having a hard time with it. And I'm like, what did you expect? I mean, this is war. Like I had a platoon sergeant that told me one time, because he was training us how to use our non-dominant hand for shooting. And he said, if you get into a fist fight, you're going to get hit. If you get into a knife fight, you're probably going to get cut. If you get into a gunfight, you're probably going to get hit. So you need to learn how to use your non-dominant hand. You need to know how to do all these drills. And so I've really taken that lesson with me through my entire life. And I always apply it when it's like, well, I mean, what did you expect? I mean, it could be anything, getting in a car accident in your car. Like, well, you're driving on the road. That's one of the options that could happen. Like, I mean, never say that, well, this isn't fair that this happened. Like, it happened. Nothing's fair. Nothing's fair. Life, it's not fair. So
agreed.
Yeah, just have a good understanding of what it is that you're getting into, and know that, it's going to be different for everybody. It's what you make of it,
Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely. What do you make of it?
Wow. Well, hey, I'm very excited about your book. And I think whenever you have that finished, We need to have you back on the podcast so we can talk about different ways to do it, or even if you, before you get finished with the book, have you back on at some point and you can kind of talk about a little bit of that woo-woo stuff. And apply it to the military side though.
Yeah, definitely. You got to be careful with me. You pull that string, I'll talk for hours about it. So you got to be careful.
That's okay. That gives me more content to provide for people. So we're good.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Awesome, man. Hey, it was great seeing you, hearing you, your fantastic story. And I think there's people going to get a lot out of it. So thanks for coming on and talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate it. It was great to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. Don't take off yet. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need help, anything like that, the VA does have great resources. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can also text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options are going to put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. Remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. I know Donnie cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. With that, Donnie, thank you. Appreciate you. To everybody out there, stay motivated.